Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gervin Parel. I'm the Dean of the Patel College of Global Sustainability. To our sustainability series. This afternoon, we have Randall, who will be talking about extension programs related to waste management. He has significant experience in waste-related issues and educational outreach activities in Sarasota County. Randall received his BS in Bachelor of Science at Ohio State University in Environmental Science and an MBA at Marylhurst University in Sustainable Business Management. And he also earned a certificate in Extension Teaching and Education from the University of Florida. So I'm sure that he will also explain or say more about his own background. So without further ado, let us invite Randall to make his presentation for about 35-40 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A. You can ask the question by typing your question in the chat, and Kelly will read that. So Randall, the stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Let me go ahead and hopefully pop up my screen there. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Looks great, Randall.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. I will add one more academic part to my resume there. I am a newly enrolled student at the University of South Florida working on my educational doctorate. And so, I have 6 credits that I get to work on and do some readings as soon as I get done in the evening. So I'm now a bowl as well. So I wanted to add that to it. So I'm excited to be in that program that you have there.
Absolutely, great.
At the university, for sure. Well, today I really wanted to talk about programs and what we do at the University of Florida Extension. I think a lot of people don't know about the extension and what we do, so I really want to introduce a little bit about the history of our organization and what we do around the state of Florida. I also want to introduce a little bit what my programs do, specifically related to waste reduction and how they tie in with sustainability, which is kind of what we're going to be focused on today. And then I also want to talk about opportunities for folks in the community to get involved with extension programs and opportunities for students to get involved as well. And with that, I'll just kind of get started here and move through the program here. Well, extension is a partnership between county governments, the university, in our case, the University of Florida, and the Department of Agriculture. Throughout the state of Florida, we have extension offices located in every county. I work specifically out of the Sarasota County location, but we have one here in Pinellas. We also have one in Hillsborough County, out towards Dover, in Plant City there. So they're all around the state, and they really have one main goal in mind, and that is to provide research-based education and solutions to address local needs in those areas. And what I mean by that is we take the research and the programs that are taking place at the university level and we take them out into our local communities. I will say that there's a little thing that we call IFAS. Not everyone's familiar with what IFAS stands for. It stands for the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And, like I said before, we really want to focus on research, teaching, and then this concept known as extension and taking that out to our communities. So I've been working on some different programs throughout Sarasota County, and I've been doing a lot of research, and we're presenting how we got started as an organization. How did we get the land grant system started in our country? And I find it kind of interesting. We've been around for a long time. Back in 1862, there was a Morrill Act that started when it was signed by President Abraham Lincoln, that started this land grant university concept. And what it did was the federal government would provide land and funding for universities. Interesting enough, it originally, when they first tried to get this passed, It didn't go through because they believed Congress shouldn't be funding education. There was still that battle going on within the Congress back then. But in order to kind of get it pushed through in 1862, they added a component of military training into it as well to kind of push it over the edge. So, as politics have evolved through the years, it seems like there's always one more little thing that needs to be added to get things over the hump, to get things going. But it was first in 1884, the Florida College of Agriculture, and it was in Lake City. Now, in 1887, they also established the State Normal College for colored students, which later became Florida A&M in Tallahassee, Florida. Kind of continuing on that, it moved from Lake City in 1906. The University of Florida was established in Gainesville. And I just kind of like the old picture here that we have of the campus, just a few buildings here in the early 1900s. For those of you who have spent any time on the campus up there, it is not quite as open as that today. And then tied in with this establishment of these land-grant universities in the early 1900s, they introduced the Smith-Lever Act, which established the Agriculture Extension, which I'm part of today. And that was designed to take that information on campus beyond the campus and out into our communities. So I'm going to put this up. I want to show all the different land-grant colleges that we have. Really, all the little orange dots that we have up there are going to be those established land-grant colleges, and they're located in every state. We mentioned earlier Ohio State that I attended there. One interesting thing about Ohio State, we have two dorms there called Morrow and Lincoln Towers, based off of that Land Grant Act, but it's all throughout the Southeast here, Clemson, University of Georgia, Texas A&M. So there's all these land grant universities across the state. Another thing that's kind of tied into this is this 1890 with the stars. And if you look here kind of in our Southeast regions here, these are going to be the historically black colleges that were established under that 1890 Act there. And many of those are Florida A&M, Southern University A&M. The furthest north is actually up in that Columbus, Ohio area called Central State University. And then most recently, in the mid-90s, they established up in the Dakota area up here, and then down in kind of the Navajo Indian reservation areas, the Native American system that has a lot of different, mostly community colleges that are tied in with that. So those are all federally funded schools across the country. So I just kind of wanted to introduce that, and really not a lot of people know what it means to be a land grant university, and really that's what that's all about when you hear that come up. So let's talk a little bit about extension. I'm going to start with a short little 1-minute video, and then we'll pick up from there.
When you need a helping hand, you often turn to a familiar face. Someone you know. Someone you trust. Someone who doesn't just know the answer, they know you. We are that helpful friend. And we know your community because we're a part of it. From Monroe to Escambia, we take the knowledge and resources of the University of Florida and place them at your doorstep. Whether you need to learn how to protect your crops, figure out your monthly budget, save your county millions of dollars, or grow the food Florida families will eat, we have a program tailored for you. So just reach out, one neighbor to another, and let us show you what the science of better living can do.
Okay, so a little bit to unpack there. You saw in the video a number of different programs that were offered by the extension. And pictured here are really our core areas that we focus on across the state of Florida and largely across the country as well. I've mentioned already that we're an agricultural-based organization. That is our tradition. That is our root, what we're founded in. And whether you're growing crops, whether that is some sort of animal science, if you're a dairy farmer, we have programs that are very related to that across the state. We also work a lot in the gardening and landscaping fields. So we work not only with residential folks who come down and provide education for them, but we also work within those industries, these kind of green industries, horticulture businesses, folks that do our landscaping. We provide best management practices for applying chemicals and how to use those correctly, and they get certified through what are called CE hours. Additionally, we work in the space of nutrition and healthy living, family and consumer sciences. A lot of this is tied to the Department of Agriculture and our local schools. The SNAP program is associated within this area as well. And then lastly, every faculty member within the state system is required to work with our 4-H and youth programs, which is kind of unique to Florida to have that requirement. But I think it makes our organization it strengthens it and makes us a very valuable resource for schools. And we've been doing a lot of school programs, as you can imagine, over the last year, as teachers have been searching for online content and different programs as we went to kind of this virtual world. But we're evolving, right? We're not as rural as we used to be. And you know, if you think about Hillsborough County, even Pinellas County, there's not a lot of farming going on in those counties except maybe out east a little bit. Same things happening in Sarasota County where I'm located. You know, we keep pushing out further east of I-75 here in Florida. And so we're starting to evolve to do more urban related programming. I put that we're agriculture and natural resources. So we like to hit both of those areas. And in Sarasota, I like to think we're kind of on the leading edge of these type of programs. We have programs in natural resources related to chemicals in the environment, ecology, a lot of our water resources and our Sea Grant programs. And then something we love to talk about is being more sustainable and sustainable programs. You'll have a speaker next week, I believe. Her name is Sarah Kane, and she is our sustainability director down in Sarasota County, who works right in lockstep with our programs down there. And she'll be able to comment on a lot of those programs they have too. But I want to kind of point these out for students because they may not know that there's these new emerging areas that you can move into and work within if you're looking to go back for maybe a master's degree or some advanced education. Climate science, regenerative farming and soils, sustainable agriculture and food systems is a new area we see emerging. When I started with the extension several years ago, there was maybe one sustainable agriculture agent. Now there are a handful of this sustainable agriculture across the state. We focus on technology now, drones and sensory monitoring. We have this actually in our region here as the drone type program, which is very beneficial to local governments after disasters and hurricanes to do aerial monitoring of different areas of fields and livestock and just damage in general. And we're also focused on building more sustainable and resilient communities in our areas. I also want to point out, outside of just these local offices in the counties, we also have a number of research centers, biological stations, and demonstration sites around the state. So you might be driving one weekend and be up in the Bend of Florida, and all of a sudden you notice this sign that says, you know, Swanee Radio Observation and Research Demonstration Site. And you go, what exactly is that? Well, the university has a number of these sites around the state that work on very region-specific projects. Cedar Key, they work out there. They have a lot of biological stations that work on aquaculture type programs. A little closer to our area in Southwest Florida, I want to highlight two of them. The first is in 1917, we had the Citrus Research and Education Center. We call them the RECs. And pictured here is just what it used to look like, you know, back in the mid 1900s here. And it was created to help support our orange industry. And what if you ever get a chance to go visit, it's really, really fascinating. I learn something every time I go there to these places, and they actually developed frozen concentrate orange juice at this center, which allowed the industry in Florida to really distribute out to across the nation and across the world and really change the industry. You know, today they're focused on pest control and taking out citrus greening and cankers and different types of methods that you can do as far as growing more efficiently and effectively. They may not even know that they're being more sustainable by doing those projects, but what happens is they're using, you know, modern technology to have more targeted water and growing and add less chemicals and really balance out equations, so we're impacting the environment less. So it kind of falls in that sustainable agriculture type field. The second one I like to point out is our Gulf Coast Research Center, and that is down in Baum, Florida, kind of in the Ruskin area. And that was developed to help with a new complex fungi that was impacting the tomato industry. So we think of Ruskin, we think of the tomatoes. That's what brought about this research center. Now, these are evolving as well. If you go down there now, and I'm happy to when we kind of open things back up, if you wanted to reach out and email me, we can set up a time to go to these. They're growing hops down there. You know, they set up LED lights on top of the hops to extend the growing, the light periods down there, and we're trying to create a new industry related to the brewing that's so big here, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Last time I was there, they actually brought out some white strawberries, which are a little bit weird to eat at first because you're not really sure, but they're able to breed and do a lot of genetic type programs there. Lots of really cool things go on, and it's all part of that larger IFAS umbrella that we work under. So I kind of want to take a little time out here and just kind of talk about some student opportunities. We are a part of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences here at CALS. And we have a number of different programs related to environmental education, agriculture, biological engineering, and you can see the list there as it kind of goes down. This happens at the main campus in Gainesville, but we also have programs that are in our region here related to research and education centers. Plant City and Baum has newly put in some dorms there, as well as a lot of online related programs. So if you have an interest in working with, you know, livestock, working with horses, or working in some sort of, you know, crop science type industry, it's available for you here locally. And I don't think a lot of people know that they have that opportunity, but it's worth looking out and kind of looking into. So I'm going to pivot here to talk a little bit about what an extension agent does and my program specifically. I have this really kind of unusual title of a waste reduction agent. And really, I'm the only one who's really focused on this solely across the state, which makes it really exciting and allows me the opportunity to work with a lot of different communities. But essentially, I work with recycling and waste reduction programs for schools, residents, and businesses. A big part of what I do now revolves around food waste and composting. I think I saw Whitney pop on here a minute ago, and I know she's really interested at USF and working in this kind of food waste and food reduction and recovery space as well. Green business partnerships, so making businesses more.
Randall, I see Kelly's hand up.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I didn't see that.
Okay,
so go ahead.
Thank you, Randall. My question was for students, in terms of your research centers that you mentioned, are those also open to our grad students for them to join your faculty in those locations?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So we like I mentioned, we have about 7 or 8 of those around the state, and they're very specific on different things that they do. So in Homestead, for example, they'll do a lot of tropical plants and ornamental plants. Up here, tomatoes, strawberries, and oranges seem to be the different things. So let me say that first. But absolutely, you can reach out to one of those RECs and to the director there very easily, and they will get back to you about programs they have that are available to come out and just be a part of one of the research projects. Perhaps there's an opportunity to work in a more longer or long-term type project. It really will vary by faculty researcher to faculty researcher, and those prep programs can range from the growing and crop science to forestry to even looking at the economic impacts and everything in between. So I would just invite them to if they have an interest in that, to reach out to the faculty that are handling those programs specifically.
Thank you, Randall.
Mm-hmm. And if there's any more, sorry about that. I got it up now so I can kind of look a little bit in more detail as we go along. I mentioned the first program I do. It's a Sarasota County Green Business Partnership program, and this is how I really got started with the extension and started working in the field of sustainability. And this program's similar to many other that are around the state or around the country that go out and provide best management practices for our businesses in the community. What we do is we go out and help them set up green teams and get their staff engaged in different types of measures that they can do to be more efficient and effective, save money, save the environment. Obviously, waste reduction and recycling is a big part of this program, but we also tie into the water conservation, energy audits, and reducing our impacts from our energy usage. The program has really shifted a little bit. We used to be thought of more as a certification type program, but I really want to approach it more as an education program for businesses. We get everyone from Sarasota Memorial Hospital to an at-home, stay-at-home business and everybody in between. So trying to design a program that works for everyone is always a challenge, and everyone's at different points along this sustainability line, so to speak. Some are very green and already implementing a lot of these programs, and other times I'll get a company that calls me and just said, can you help us recycle? We don't do it well. And so I try to help always in between to get that program up and going, and it's been really, really successful for us. We're going on our 15th year now in Sarasota County. I want to talk a little bit about another thing that kind of brought my job into focus. And it was in 2008, the state of Florida had put a target in place, a House Bill 7135, to reach a recycling goal, a recycling rate of 75% by the year 2020. We have just crossed that threshold, and we fell short statewide. We're around 50%. My county hovers around that 50% as well. But, we still did improve a little bit from where we started back in 2008. We were in the 15 to 20%. So to come up to 50 is much, much better, but we still have a long way to go. I will point this out, though. 24% of our waste that gets landfilled is organic by nature. A large majority of that is that food waste that I mentioned earlier. So if we ever realistically want to achieve that higher amount, that 75% landfill diversion, we need to tie in that food waste and organic equation. The numbers really won't ever add up to get us over that hump. And that's why there's so many people working in that space right now in that food waste and recovery type component. I partner a lot with the county on projects, and one of the biggest ones we did was we just became a single stream recycling county. Now in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, maybe some of you are in Manatee County, you already had this in place. It's where we have that single cart to pick up all your recyclables. We had not converted that in Sarasota County. We still had a 2-bin system at the time. And so a lot of thought, a lot of study went into this to decide if we wanted to make that investment to make this change. The county went ahead and has done that. We are a little over a year into that now, and we help with the educational programs related to that. So if you go on our Eventbrite page, you'll see that I have programs about recycling correctly, what goes into what bin, reducing plastics, right? Single-use plastics and pulling those out of the waste stream. That's a big, big part of the educational projects that we have related to recycling. Now, I'm going to kind of give you a snapshot of how I analyze some of the data and how we present different results. One of the things I like about being an extension agent is we approach it from a research and a data-driven side of things. We look at what's coming in and we're able to allow people to determine kind of the best way to move forward from a county or as a program way. And this is a good example. I just got these a couple weeks ago, and it's our 1-year results of that single stream conversion. I know it's kind of a busy slide, but it's easier if I put it up there so I can read it there. But after 1 year, we improved 26% by tonnage. So we upped our amount coming in. But we also had a 10% increase in contamination. So that's kind of expected. When you go to one larger bin, you figure you're going to get more material in there, and the contamination is going to increase. So a net 16% of recoverable materials is what the county is showing after 1 year. And when you break down and look at that contamination component, which is actually up here in this upper corner, kind of this 20% that you get, 15% or 3/4 of it is just flat contamination. It's things that people are putting in that are the wrong items. And there's really not a lot you can do about that other than try to improve and educate and get that cleaned up a little bit. A lot of that comes from those multi-use families, large apartment places. Those really kind of get jumbled a lot, and we have a lot of programs to address those type of places. And then there's this 4.6% that are items that are in there recycled, and they are able to be recycled, but they were put in incorrectly. And what I mean by that is they're full of water or soda, or they have, a lot of food still on them, or they're oily or greasy. So they weren't just disposed of correctly. Another big one that's part of that is they're in those plastic bags. People bag them up and put them in the bags we get at the supermarket, and they dispose their recyclables in that. So those need to be opened up, and often they kind of get tossed to the side and not recycled. So that just gives you kind of an idea of how we look at some of the data and some of the different material that comes in, and then we can go and help out different municipalities if they're thinking about maybe putting one of these programs in place. We can give them an honest evaluation of what it is and show them the research, and then they can make the program fit their needs if they feel that way. And that's part of this larger strategic planning that most of the extension does, especially in our office across the way, working with those local and county governments to help them improve their programs as best we can. 2 initiatives I want to point out that are really big for me this year: single-use plastics. We want to try to use Sarasota County as a model to pull out single-use plastics. We're encouraging more bottle stations and getting funding for bottling station at parks, at libraries, at different areas where people go, educating employees about the impacts of those single-use plastics. And then we have different types of checkout type programs to, if they're holding a meeting, they can check out reusable totes and reusable wares rather than just kind of turning over and throwing things away. Kind of that lead by example type model. And then back on that food waste program, we are seeing a tremendous trend in neighborhoods and HOAs, condo associations wanting to compost on site. I have several of those throughout Sarasota County. I know you do up here in the Tampa Bay region as well. So we're developing a program to work with not only composting on site, but tying it into our neighborhoods and community gardens programs. We have our first really kind of full rollout of that next month, and I'm really excited to see how many of these programs we can get to encourage that kind of diversion from the landfill. And it's just a great way to bring communities together as well. All right, so another class I do, and probably my favorite class that I do, is called Let's Make Some Black Gold. All right, it's basically our composting education program. We had been doing a 1.5 hour, sometimes a little bit longer, active learning program. We go over the issue of food waste, composting basics, the science behind it, how to make a correct pile, what foods go in there. And then we show how to screen their compost. And if you want to purchase a bin, you can, or you can attend for free. Obviously, in the education field, both from the on campus all the way down to the elementary level, education has been turned upside down. So we've had to shift to this kind of online approach. And so I just want to kind of show you maybe 15, 20 seconds of what one of my little videos looks like of how to build a compost pile. We'll see if it works.
Okay, so we're outside here in front of our composting bin. You can see I have a number of them set up here. Again, select the one that's going to work best for you. There's all different kinds of them. You know, I have the Geo bin, which is this round setup here, which is open on the top and the bottom. I have one here that's made out of welded wire. It's similar type setup, just nice open air, real basic. And then I even have different bins over here, kind of a rectangular one that stacks. It's up to you which one you want to use. There's all different kinds, and they all work equally as effective. And
So I won't torture you through that, but you kind of get a sense of the different types of programs that we do. We've been trying as hard as we can at Extension, our fellow faculty have, to make education as interactive as we can using Zoom and different videos and things like that. We have created videos for youth and teachers all the way to our residents around there. Now, I just put this slide up because I always put this in when I do my food waste education program. I think that you had an excellent speaker a couple weeks ago talk about the larger issue of food waste, and it was fantastic. And everyone kind of has something similar to this. We fill up a stadium essentially twice a day. And I did this with Leon County a few months ago, and I got in big trouble because they're at Florida State campus and I had the University of Florida swamp here. So I assume I'll get in kind of the same trouble here with not putting in, the Tampa Bay Super Bowl champions stadium there. So I wanted to give a little shout out to the Buccaneers. We're really excited that they did that. I know there was some sustainability and community programs tied into the sports events here that go through with NFL Green, and so they do a lot of sustainability projects through those sports events as well. I know I'm about 30 minutes in, so I'll kind of go a little quicker here and just wrap up so I can take any questions. But we work a lot with schools. Vermiculture is something we're really, really excited about and building a lot of new programs related to it. That is composting with worms. We actually took here in this picture our old dual recycling bins and set those up and reused them. And we have a system at one of our local middle schools with the farm type program. We haven't got the buy-in of all the food waste at the cafeteria yet, but we have got some of the teachers to bring coffee grounds over from the teachers lounge and things like that, hoping that we can kind of get a little more momentum as we open the school up and get things going again. But that's a very successful another food waste program inside the schools itself. We do a program called What's Cycling in the Biosphere, and we talk about decomposition and the nitrogen cycle and the impacts that has on our waterways and our water systems with runoff. Pictured here, I think some of you may recognize the little biogas unit down there. I know USF is very big with Dr. Coolhane and Whitney with the biogas type programs there. We're tied into doing that as well. I know we've talked a lot about doing some programs moving forward about doing that, but we do this with youth as well. It's a great way to kind of show what's happening when food waste breaks down in our landfill settings and the impacts it has, on greenhouse gases and also in our oceans. 4-H program I mentioned before, we used to just grow and grade and test the radishes that they grow, but we put another component on it and we said, well, what happens to the radishes when they're done or they aren't eaten? So we compost those and put those into our vermiculture bins, kind of showing that entire life cycle, which is really important, not just to grow the food, but what happens to things as you throw them away at the end. I will mention, because I know we were talking about what opportunities there are for students at Patel College. Right now, a number of the internships are being posted. So I would invite you to identify an area of interest. From extension side, it might be agriculture, something within the natural resources, even the field of sustainability. And I would start searching some of the county websites. I know Sarasota County is going to have some of these opportunities, Pinellas, Hillsborough, and beyond. I would even suggest looking beyond your county a little bit. Many of these are going to be online right now, and so there might be some opportunities to do some online or blended type approaches that might be a little bit further away. If you don't see something and you just have an interest in one of these areas, contact your local Extension or IFAS office. For example, if you're interested in marine science, you might want to call Armando, who runs Sea Grant in our office, or Libby Callahan up in the Pinellas area. They may have something, an opportunity for you. So look it up, identify the agent in your area, and shoot them an email. Tell them who you are, introduce yourself, and see if there's something available. It might just surprise you. Sometimes they can be paid internships, 8 to 12 weeks. Other times, maybe there's a way to tie in some college credit or resources and things like that and kind of weave into your bigger program. But one thing I will tell you about extension agents is we have a very hard time saying no, especially to students. So if you have something, we can feel free to reach out with us on that. I actually have a question pop up. Someone is wondering where they can find information about the overall program and some of the research purposes. Yeah, just easy Google search for UF IFAS extension. It'll take you to all different sorts of pages. It'll be broken down into research, extension, and then teaching. And then you can really get through a wormhole and just go nuts on that. Or you can look at specific county sites. You know, Sarasota County Extension has a big page that focuses on all the composting, food waste, waste reduction, and things like that. I actually host the composting page for the entire organization through Sarasota County. It'll link to that. A lot of great resources that you have there. But thanks for the question there, Eugene. The last thing I kind of want to wrap up with here in the last couple minutes is I love using the power of sports to impact change. I think you can reach a tremendous amount of people using these sporting events, and I specifically use them for environmental programs. One of the ones that we started with here is at our rowing facility in Sarasota County. We host a lot of high school and up to world rowing championships. It took some coaxing to get them to buy into it, but we created our UF composting bins and we put them out at the site. And we actually compost it and collect it and do it in the maintenance area down here in the corner and just pack it in mulch-lized bins, and it breaks down and we divert it from the landfill. I've only had one trouble with it, actually, with eggs. We had a lot of eggs thrown away at one event and a raccoon or possum got in there one time. But other than that, I just let them sit there. And so we're able to educate the community that comes to the events about the importance of recycling, waste reduction, sustainable type programs related to food waste diversion. And we create volunteer teams to do that. I love talking to the individual athletes and the students here. This is a great picture because the students here are from Miami Beach High School, and I'm there telling them about the compost bin I'm going to give them. Please put in your banana peels and your apple cores and different types of waste. The parents here in the background, you can see just not really paying much attention. They're all on their cell phones there. So, you know, students always kind of get a bad rap for being on their phones, but I find that we all are guilty of doing that. But you can reach a lot of people at these events, and it has a tremendous impact to take back to their communities. Tied in with that green sports, I have a course, a master's course at the University of Florida through the Health and Human Performance College. It's in the sport management major called Environmental Sport Management or Sustainability in Sports. We work with different venues across the state and even bring in experts from around the country to come and speak with us. We've toured Amalie Arena. We've had the Mercedes-Benz Stadium up in Atlanta play a role in these different types of programs. You know, just using different types of LEED certifications, water capture, you know, composting, introducing compostable wares, waste reduction, even the energy type thing. I will say I've seen that the industry evolve tremendously. When I started, it was all about recycling and just waste reduction and energy. But today it's moved into other areas of that social side of sustainability that's so important. A couple of my interns there participated in the Final Four event. I think there's those opportunities for those who are interested in being part of the green sports movement. USF is a member of the Green Sports Alliance. If you're interested in that, please email me and we can kind of close that gap and get you involved and maybe start greening up and making some of your sporting events on campus zero waste or lessen the impacts of those events. Really, really great organization to work with. So what's next? We're going to continue to create partnerships, in the community, whether it's with students, with our residents around the county, and then also different business leaders and our government bodies. I see sustainability in my line of work moving beyond the environmental focus and that economic focus, which really takes up most of the attention, to that social side, like I mentioned. And what I mean by that is being more inclusive to all our stakeholders that are involved in our community. We want to have better diversity, better equity, better inclusion. We're trying to produce materials not only in English, but also in alternative language Spanish with our Cafe Latino. Diversity in our workforce, diversity in our student bodies is a major focus that we have in extension as well. And really, one of the things I love, I'm taking this class at USF right now. It's about foundations and protests, and I've really been opened up and exposed to the impact that a certain angled curriculum can have. So we want to open up and have it inclusive and tell more than one story, tell the entire story of what's going on, whether it's in science, education, or something beyond that. And the big goal is just to reach more audience and new audiences. And with that, I'm going to kind of wrap up. 2 partnerships I've worked with who I've kind of mentioned already, but the MUMA School of Business has worked with us and recognized a number of our green business partners throughout the year. I wish I was actually in that beautiful building or over at the Patel College, in person doing this today. It would be a lot of fun to meet everyone and discuss afterwards. But, we're continuing to work with you guys on those food waste, biogas issues, and even some of the Final 4 sustainability projects. And with that, I want to say thank you for having me, and happy to answer any questions as I see them kind of streaming in here in the chat box.
Thank you, Randall. That's a great presentation. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions for you. I'm so delighted that you have linked the extension program to the larger issues of social issues, equity, and economic development, and issues like that. And the success of the original program of land-grant universities to promote agriculture in America in the 19th century was historically an important act, because at that time there was this terrible famine in Ireland, the potato famine, and there's a prohibition of export of food from England, UK to America. So the vision that President Lincoln had at that time to make farmers know about modern agriculture practices through universities and setting up land-grant universities had a tremendous impact on how America became the food basket of the world in the 20th century, and then the agricultural revolution that started from there, and then that model was exported to developing countries like Mexico, India, and others, and how they developed their own extension program and how successful that was. So I studied some of that part of some of the courses I took, and it's a wonderful field to learn more about that. And we hope that the same kind of idea could be extended further. You talked about the evolution of this program into other areas of extension related to sustainability, whether it is related to waste reduction and things like that. So I'm so excited that you're here about, tell us about that. So I'm sure that our students will have more questions, interesting questions to ask you. So I just start off the conversation, the dialogue based on that historical precedent of agriculture and the A&M universities, or just straight state universities that started the agricultural revolution. Okay, I will stop there.
And I just want to pick up on that a little bit. I mentioned that we're evolving and changing as an organization. We become much more urbanized, and how do we adjust and move as an organization is always largely debated, really, what we should do. But oftentimes the thought is that agriculture and the natural resources kind of butt up against each other. And I actually have found it to be quite the opposite. I find that the agriculture field is being very sustainable, whether that's the focus of what they're doing or not. They want to use less water, less resources, less chemicals, less nitrogen or anything like that to grow. It saves cost, it saves resources, and makes them, just run more efficiently as a farm. So they're all kind of interwoven a lot more than we think. And the waste reduction programs, every business produces some kind of waste. So it provides me a lot of opportunity to work with a lot of interesting places. I will say I noticed one question here about plastics is coming in here. And just to kind of read it for everyone, this is interesting because a lot of the plastics aren't being recycled, right? China is no longer accepting a lot of our plastics. We used to collect them and ship them over there, and just kind of what's going on with that. We just did a course on reducing plastics recently, and we addressed a number of these different issues. There's a couple things going on. Obviously, with COVID happening right now, the use of plastics is accelerating, and a lot of the education we've done to reduce them has kind of been unwound. So let's get back on encouraging people to use their bags and bring their bags and reduce those single-use plastics. So that's one component. The other thing is barely just under 10% of the plastics is recycled right now. Most of them are being thrown away. Most of those are disposed of in our landfills. They get burned or they get buried forever. So just trying to reduce it on the front end, it can make such a major impact on reducing plastics, single-use, reusable containers, influencing our manufacturing sectors to not use so much packaging. It's drives you kind of crazy when you go buy a package of something and it's packed in 4 other things of plastic. So trying to get those things reduced on the manufacturing side can have a lot. Our personal decisions can be a part of that. And then in that pie graph I had earlier, you saw that number 1 and number 2 plastics, the PET, number 1, and the HPDI, which are the number 2, they're a little bit harder plastic, are the only ones that really have any value right now. So what's happening is, and communities are struggling across the country because there's so much plastics being produced, so much being recycled, the value of it has dropped. And really the only ones that are able to get any sort of equality or a little bit of money back on are those 1s and 2s. So it's a big issue right now, and I'm glad you brought that up. There's really no one great solution for that. I think shipping things on a shipping container in China is not really an acceptable one either. But we need to make better decisions across that board.
Great. We have a question here from Whitney Fong. It says, you mentioned that many of your partners now focus on the economic impact of sustainability initiatives. She says, I was wondering to what extent communities are interested in climate impact and mitigation, and what do you think is the major buy-in for communities to adopt sustainability initiatives? Very interesting question.
It's a great question. You should come and ask Sarah Kane about that as well, who really works in this space next week. But you're right, Whitney. A lot of communities, especially here in Florida, have been slow to really adopt kind of the climate impacts. Some even are in a place where they will call it building resilient communities. That's the way it's kind of moved on to related to that. In the I think about the Tampa Bay region. You slowly are starting to see, infrastructure projects being put into place, different roads being moved and adapted. But I don't know if those are really always being done in the sense of, climate impacts. They're more just done with growth. We're still kind of caught in that growth type perspective from that. Sarasota, where I am, Sarasota County, especially the city of Sarasota, has really bought into being a more sustainable community. They're a great example. The city has done a number of things and made a number of commitments to, reducing energy across the board and setting those targets in place. You know, I mentioned that 75% recycling goal that was in place that's now expired statewide. I don't really know of any statewide program related to that moving forward. But it certainly would be nice to see more of those things, you know, introduced by individual communities and get that buy-in. But it's going to have to happen at the local level, individual communities. You know, I think of St. Petersburg a little bit with that, and they have some of those climate initiatives that they put into place. But still, we need to be doing more.
Okay, any more questions in the chat area?
I see someone raise their hand there.
Yeah, that's right.
Hi, Randy. This is Taina. I was the one that asked the China question.
Yeah.
I also have, and I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, because I'm here. I'm at work, so I'm listening while I'm working. But my question was regarding yard waste. And it's because, like, I cringe when I see people put their plastic bags outside full of leaves and their branches and things like that. Is there any kind of education program with regards to that, and people kind of using that as mulch or doing composting it or doing something else with regards to that?
Yeah, so one thing to know about recycling, yard waste collection, those type of programs, they're very, you know, county and city specific. They could vary from place to place and how they handle them. Often, yard waste is considered compost, and they'll throw that number into their composting. But you must remember they're definitely two different you know, systems that are going on there. I'm in Hillsborough County. They do not want you to use those plastic bags. They just want you to put it out there on the street, and they kind of cringe at that type of stuff, and it gets those mixed in. In Sarasota, we still see a lot of people using those bags and put them in plastic bags because it's a little bit different setup as far as they're collected. But, you know, we do have education programs through our county that tell people, you know, the correct way to roll those out and put those in place. I don't know how often they get viewed, quite honestly. But one thing to consider, whether it's recycling, yard waste, be sure to go to your local community and find out what they're doing, because it can be very different depending on where you're at. And then add into it down here in Florida, we have a lot of people who come, snowbirds from up north, who are used to a whole nother system as well. So they have to be educated on the proper system as well. You know, when we rolled out the cart, single-use cart, I know they put a plastic educational flyer in there, but, you know, I don't know how many people even went and really read that type of stuff. But I guess, you know, you could always encourage your neighbors if you see that happening or it's done incorrectly. Most of that stuff is chipped up, though, and piled up, and then they try to use that at various parks and things like that as part of the composting, you know, landfill diversion program. Some does end up as cover at the end of the day on landfills as well to kind of cap it. So some of it does get into the landfill. Hopefully that answers the question. I'm not sure if that was the best answer.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, check your local ordinances and see what they are, because they do vary from place to place that do that. And someone mentioned that Broward County has some big commitments in place in green cities, and I would agree with you on that. They are doing a lot of programs related to that. That's one that's very similar in nature to Sarasota. We always have a lot of programs, and I actually talk with them a lot. I was just on the phone with their extension service the other day. They have purchased some geo bins, and they're doing residential composting and backyard programs that they're getting started, and we're working on materials right now. So they're going to be doing some big recycling, composting programs out there as well. And Whitney also mentioned that she saw Hillsborough is starting some neighborhood food waste pickups for homes. I haven't heard that. That's exciting. I know there's a couple companies, Sunshine, who has done stuff, or Suncoast, I get those confused, composting, who does that. And they used to do it at a few of the local businesses. And that's kind of, there's some folks doing that around the edges a little bit. But they just seem to be really staggered. There's no no, kind of citywide commitment that I know of yet, but I'd love to see it. I'd love to see somebody go out and try a curbside type program. We've seen, cities like Austin, Texas roll out kind of pilot projects. Orlando had that in place as well. The big problem is that we've picked up all this food waste. Where do we take it? In Orlando's case, they were at the time taking all food waste and taking it to a biogas unit. When you start specifically doing just composting, that's only going to be stuff that's grown from the ground, your fruits, your vegetables. There's no animal waste associated with that. And to get residents to buy in and put the correct items in there is going to be a challenge. We've been trying to recycle for 30 plus years, and we still struggle with that. You saw that 20% of the stuff is not done correctly. Food waste is definitely something to challenge, but also an opportunity. I leave it to the younger Patel students to come up with these solutions. It's out there.
Okay, I think the hand up from TR must be an old one.
I think it is. I think it is.
Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, thank you so much, Randall, for this very interesting presentation. And then this presentation will be put up on our website, so those students who are not able to make it should be able to watch it. And I'm sure that you'll answer questions from students. Perhaps they might be interested in finding out
Absolutely.
about
Yeah, absolutely. That rpenn@ufl.edu. I'm happy to help with any questions they have. If they have projects they're interested in starting and just need some slight direction or a little push in the right direction, or the contact that needs to get that going, I'm certainly here to help students in any way that I can.
All right. Thank you so much, Randall. Kelly, you have any final words?
Thank
Oh, I think we missed her.
I'm certain that we will be reaching out to you, and our students will as well. So thank you again, Randall, and thank you, Dean.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.